Así que bueno, ¿cuánta gente no estará conectada por ahí? Saludos, Bel. Me alegra verte por acá. Leí tu comentario y se me olvidó saludarte. Eh, a ver, voy a seguir leyendo comentarios. Ya listos acá para comenzar en 2 minuticos. Yo estoy en Canadá en búsqueda laboral. Enanístico, bueno. Por ejemplo, ¿qué es referente tecnológico? Y nadie conoce Mercado Libre, por ejemplo, ¿qué es referente tecnológico en la tarde? Sí, es que a veces pensamos que no sé, Mercado Libre, Global, Rappi. Uno dice, no, todo el mundo lo conoce, ¿no? Tú vas afuera y nadie conoce esas empresas. Como nosotros sí conocemos los Uber, los Netflix, los Twitter, los Airbnb, etcétera. Después hablamos de colonialismo. Si lo queremos tocar, creo que también va un poco de las startups y empresas pequeñas que arriesgan por el diseño el nivel por el diseño a nivel norteamericano. Johan, ¿va a estar este live disponible para ver después? Sí, lo voy a dejar aquí en Twitch y tal vez corta algunas partecitas para YouTube. Así que si estás suscrito a mi canal en YouTube, ahí lo vas a ver. O si no te das aquí, dale seguir. Para todos los que se conectan, denle aquí abajito seguir a este canal. Me ayudan un montón siguiéndome. Y, y pues nada, acá voy a estar no tan constante, pero en momentos especiales voy a venir a estar acá con ustedes. Dice muy nicho americano, la de este año. Americano está mal dicho, americanos somos todos, norteamericano tal vez sí. Enanístico a.k.a. Diego Franco, diegofran.co. Saludos, Dieguito, un abrazo, el crack. En general nosotros nos enseñan a saber otros países, pero a ellos no es relevante conocer los latinos. Sí, no, a ellos no les importa saber. Al igual que a nosotros no nos importa saber, por ejemplo, en Brasil. Brasil es otro mundo aparte, es otro continente. Y nosotros no nos importa saber qué empresas son las grandes allá en Brasil, ni cuál es la cultura de diseño. Y eso que está mucho más cerca de nosotros, Brasil, que lo que está Estados Unidos, Canadá, Europa. Son otros mundos, son otras culturas, así que también tenemos que pensar desde esa perspectiva. Eh, Nosotros usamos muchos productos de ellos, pero a nosotros tampoco nos interesa saber mucho de lo que esté pasando por allá, y a ellos igual, no les importa. Eh, Dice, yo conocía a Rappi, estaría bien dar visibilidad. Sí, en muchos lugares se conoce, digamos que por lo menos a nivel hispanohablante estamos un poquito más conectados, pero bueno. Listo, en 3 2 1 y vamos con la config. Después seguimos hablando de todo esto. Bueno, esperemos que no nos tumben la transmisión. ¿Qué pasó? ¿Qué pasó? Estamos todos listos acá. Bueno, bueno, bueno. Me dicen si se escucha bien o le subo un poquito más. ¿Ahí escuchan bien? ¿Me confirman? Quiero que tengan la mejor experiencia aquí en el canal. Y bueno, pues para irse a YouTube. Listo, ahí lo voy a subir un poquito más. Aquí desde. Está todo. Bueno, pero acá también es el audio desde YouTube. Ahí le subí todo lo que me da acá. Sí, se escucha bajito. Se escucha bajito.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yuki Yamashita, and I'm Figma's Chief Product Officer. And on behalf of the entire Figma team from around the world, welcome to Config 2023.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We feel incredibly lucky to be supported by so many of you.
Yo
This is
tengo ese
actually the
pin.
first time our community has gotten together in person for Config since our very first conference back in 2020. So, to the 8,500 people here in San Francisco, it's so good to see all of you. We also have hundreds of thousands of attendees tuning in virtually. That's right, hundreds of thousands. That's as many active users that were on the platform when I joined Figma a little over 4 years ago, which just boggles my mind.
Bueno.
And I want to give a special shout out to the config watch parties that are happening around the world. There are 55 of them, from places like Chennai to Bogota, from Cincinnati to Singapore, which I was just at last month. So thank you for celebrating this very special
Nombraron a Bogotá. Genial.
day with us.
Estamos desde Bogotá
Now I can't
transmitiendo
wait
para
to show
todos
you what we
ustedes
have in
también.
store today, and I'm sure neither can you. So let's kick things off the way we always have by showing you what our team has been building. And for that, please join me in welcoming Figma CEO, Dylan Field.
Dylan Field. Listo, se vino lo bueno. Se vino lo bueno. Acá sacas mi pincito. Sí, ahí está el pincito.
Wow. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Config 2023.
Este es el mejor watch party de todos.
And just wherever you are, wherever you're coming from, thank you for being here with us. So, as Yuki mentioned, the last in-person config was February 6, 2020, which you might note that date was just a few weeks before COVID started. And we thought that going into that, config would be the biggest event of the year. But of course, the world had some other plans. And it was about 800 people in the midway, which was in the dog patch in SF. And just to bring you back to that moment, we launched selection colors, hyperlinks, and auto layout with stretch. Some good features. So today, we have over 8,000 people here.
Okay, ahí están.
Hundreds of
Están
thousands
los influencers.
And we are just completely humbled by all of us being together. So thank you so much for being part of this journey with us. The product, so a lot has changed, especially in the last year. And that's not just the product, it's also the community. If we see everybody here,
Súper fácil, ¿lo vieron ahí?
But
Product Community, mira, lo tienen súper claro. Saben que la comunidad es lo que sostiene esto. Ok. Vamos a ver como un recuento de lo que ha hecho Figma durante este último periodo de tiempo. Nada nuevo. Sections 1, mejoras en Figma, los prototipos, video en prototipo. Tráeme lo nuevo, Dylan.
And of course, those are just some highlights. The team has been working super hard to get all sorts of stuff out. Second, though, our community has also grown. And we introduced the ability to publish paid resources most recently. So I want to highlight a few creators. First, Molly. Molly published the UI Prep Style Guide. I see some applause. And Molly also teaches DS Bootcamp, Design Systems Bootcamps, using her Figma UI kits. Div Riots is a team behind HTML2 Design. Maybe some of you are users of this
Se parece mucho cuando Apple nombra como productos del App Store que son buenos. Me acuerda un poquito de eso, como esa época de Steve Jobs. Ok. Bueno, bienvenido Apple a Figma.
And they published their first official design kits on the Figma community platform. I also want to give a shout out to Joey Banks. I don't know where you are, Joey. Joey, for years, has built and maintained just immaculate kits, and we just appreciate all the work you've done so much, Joey.
Sí, ya ve, por muchos años hizo los
Another
kits
really core
sin
part of
ser
our
los
community
oficiales.
are our students and educators.
Woo.
And we've been invested in education since the beginning of
Yo tengo esa licencia, Figma
so
for
all of our
Education.
products since we launched Figma in GA in 2016 have been free for students and educators. And we're committed to being free forever for them as well. So last year, Google Chromebooks beta was launched for Figma and FigJam to students. And this was us working with 50 schools and about 10,000 students around the United States. Today, we're announcing the GA of our partnership with Chromebook. And any classroom in the United States will now have access to the highest enterprise grade.
Yo tengo un Chromebook. Bueno, me parece increíble que continúen con esto. Yo la verdad tengo un proyecto de educación con Figma. Espero algún día a la config para contarlo.
We're expanding our education offering to Japan as well.
Okay.
Third, Figma as a company is also going through
Ahí
changes.
está, les dije.
Back in the fall of last year, we entered into an acquisition agreement with Adobe.
Les dije.
Like many of you, I grew up using Adobe tools.
Pasó.
So I believe we can do so much more for you with access to Adobe's deep tech and expertise. And I know that our distinct strengths can come together in amazing ways for product design, creativity, and productivity. And I couldn't be more excited.
Ok, se viene lo bueno.
Lastly, the world is shifting too. It's 2023, and so as someone in technology in San Francisco, I can't do this keynote without mentioning AI. I think it's on all of our minds though, really. How is this going to impact design? AI will redesign how we work. That's clear. And I think that for many of us, that's scary, but also fascinating. My point of view is that AI will enable anyone
de inteligencia artificial, yo les dije.
But a good first draft is not a world-class product. Going from a good first draft to a world-class product still requires all of you, and it still requires your teams. When I think about Figma's efforts, I often draw out 3 stages of the product building process: brainstorming and ideation, design, and building and production. If you can think it, Figma wants to help you build it. But there's still so much more we can improve when it comes to going from design to build. So that's what today's keynote is going to focus on: those late stages of the design process and those earlier stages of the building process. We're going to dive into 3 areas: design systems, prototyping, and production. So, let's get started.
Okay, design tokens.
Oh boy.
Hablamos.
So, a lot of you have speculated online that we're going to launch tokens at Config this year.
No, ya, o sea, se impresionó porque no hubo tanta expectativa,
And I'm
pero...
so sorry to say, we're not launching tokens. But
no?
we are launching variables.
Variables, okay. A ver.
Language is pretty important, and I know that many of us have been using the words tokens as a community.
O sea, son tokens, pero no se llaman tokens.
We are calling them variables because we are taking a more holistic approach beyond just immutable values in your design system. And so I think as we go through the keynote today, you'll understand why we're calling it variables, not tokens. But let's dive in and just check it out.
A ver, vamos a ver las variables. Ellos no lo quieren llamar design tokens, muy bien, pero son tokens.
Okay, so here I am, and you can see here that I am
hay
in
muchas cosas nuevas ahí. Voy a tomar un
design,
screenshot porque hay muchas cosas nuevas ahí.
we're going to be working in this file, which is for a marketplace called World Peas. It has locally sourced fruits and vegetables, apparently from Dillon Fields field. Nice.
Okay.
And if you're like me, when you're modifying these designs, you might want to experiment by putting in different values and changing them. So the first thing I'm going to show you is that now these variables can actually be surfaced as these values. So for example, if I want to change to a larger border radius, I can just do that. You can see there's this little button here, and I can switch.
Variables.
I can also modify my auto layout spacing here as well. So I want to go from small to large.
Okay.
Trivial.
Listo.
Okay, so you're probably wondering, where are these magical variables defined? And if you go to the right-hand side, you can see that if I click this button, I'll open the variables UI. So this variables UI lets you define all sorts of different variables.
Espaciado,
On the
bordes,
top, we have spacing variables, which are integers.
texto, que ya lo teníamos,
We also have our border radius variables.
colores,
we also can define string variables, color variables, and even Boolean variables.
Cuatro tipos de variables.
You might be wondering, though, because many of us have in our minds this link between the word tokens or variables and theming. Where is the theming? So let's go check that out. Now, I'm already in a collection of variables. Sorry, one more thing I want to show you first. If you click here, you can also scope your variables. So, for example, for border radius, I can
vamos a tener
scope
opciones
it to just
dentro
show
de
up for
los
corner radius.
tokens.
Or for spacing, I can make it just show up for auto layout, which is really powerful
en
when
la
you're creating a design
Autolayout,
system and you want to make sure it's
constraints,
consumed a certain way.
texto.
Okay, now if I switch collections to color modes, you can see that my rows are variables and my columns are different modes. And so on the bottom, I've got hex colors defined, and on top, I've got variables that are referenced as an alias. This is super useful because when you are able to define something one place and use it everywhere, it makes your design system so much more easy to maintain.
Okay.
So you can see we've got a light mode and a dark mode defined
Diferentes
here.
niveles de
So let's
tokens.
check out how this shows up. If I click this frame, I can go to my layer properties, and you'll see that I have a little option here. And if I switch to dark mode,
Ok, con tokens se puede hacer
Just works.
obviamente light and dark mode. Eso súper claro.
now I can actually have more than just two modes.
O sea, tendríamos un
For example, how about we go to config
multibrand.
2023 mode?
Ahora podríamos trabajar. Ok, eso sí. Multibrand en Figma.
So
Multibrand en
as
Figma.
powerful as that is, there's more. And you can define modes that are not just colors and themes, but you can also do it with other types of
Esto,
variables as
esto
well.
soluciona un
For
montón,
example,
pero también nos va a
here,
poner en un,
I have
pro-
my
en
densities
un, en
mode.
un
And I've got
mucho
densities,
trabajo a los que hacemos
defined as
sistemas de
compact.
diseño.
But what if I want to switch it to something that has more space? Now I can click comfortable or spacious.
Ok.
And you'll notice that as I went from
Layer.
spacious
Comfortable.
comfortable, those actually the thumbnails
Okay,
appear
espaciado.
here. And so I can also tie spacing to Boolean attributes, like do I want to have an image appear or not. Now let's say that World Peas wants to go global, and we want to start to localize our content more. I can define modes with string variables. So I can go from English to Japanese.
Bien, le están
And if I wanna test
apostando
out
un
some
montón
long strings
al
in
multilenguaje también.
I can do that too. Now, one thing that we're aware of is that a lot of times you want to combine these modes to test things together. So for example, what if I want to test Japanese, mobile, and dark as a combo? I can just copy this into this frame, and it'll all just work automatically.
¿Cómo fue eso?
Okay, what about German
Vamos a ver.
and config?
Ok.
Now, okay, let's try something a little bit harder.
Eso está súper
What if we
interesante.
went from mobile to tablet and also did English and light? Ready?
Ok, por espacio, los tokens actúan directamente y le dan la forma, el color,
So,
el
just to recap,
espaciado que esté determinado
we're
en ese
launching
espacio.
color, number, string, and Boolean variables. We've added collections, aliasing, modes, scoping, and inheritance. If you're on Pro and Org, you'll get 4 modes. Enterprise gets 40 modes, as well as a REST API that you can ping in order to keep design and development in sync. All right, let's get back to the demo.
Vamos a ver el video. ¿Sí era lo que esperaban?
Now, this is a really cool tablet UI that I got just magically just now, but you might notice that these rows are not great. If I go here, you can see that they're pretty long, and I just don't love the way they look. This is an auto layout frame, and it'd be nice if I can kind of make like a max width here as well as a minimum width. And today we're announcing that you can do just that. So,
Ok.
if I
Listo.
go in here to
Está
my width,
mejorando el
you'll see that there's
Autolayout
now a
acá.
little drop-down arrow. I can add my min width. I'll choose
Min width
300.
y max width. Ujú.
And a max
Por fin.
width, which I'll make 600. And you can see it's adjusted. So now we have a little bit of a better design. But I personally feel like it would look better if you had them on maybe like 2 per row instead of 1 per row. Anyone agree? Okay, cool.
Lo dije al inicio de la transmisión. Van a mejorarlo.
So what
Van a
if with
traerlo.
auto layout I could just make it wrap?
El
That'd be nice,
Autolayout.
right? Well, today we're announcing you can do just that.
Ok. Bueno, por fin. Wrap. Por fin. Con min y max
And-
width.
Check this out. If I design this responsively, it will just flow the way I want it to. All right. So with auto layout improvements today, we're announcing wrap, min width and height, max width and height, and it was a little bit of a long demo, so we truncated it. We're also announcing truncation as well for text. Okay, you might think that's a wrap, but don't worry, we got more. Prototyping.
Listo, vamos para
Next
prototipado.
up, we're going to dive into prototyping. Now, prototyping in Figma, as we all know, is essential because it helps you user test and get the right feedback. But it's way too complex. So complex that sometimes we get screenshots like these. And no, this isn't Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, so that was a great movie. This is a Figma prototype, and it has so many noodles. Internally, we actually have a name for this. We call these pasta pictures, and we collect them in a Slack channel at Figma. And these prototypes can be super impressive, but they're also very scary to maintain. So scary, in fact,
Vamos
that
a ver
one of
con
our
qué nos
users, Tyler,
sorprenden.
actually went as a pasta picture for the last Halloween. Now, with all due respect to Tyler,
Let's
we
run.
think there has to be a better way. So, we set off on a quest to make prototyping better using variables. Let's go back to the demo and take a look.
Vamos al demo. Vamos a
All
ver
right.
qué.
So,
Ok.
I'm going to go to my prototyping file here. And just to orient ourselves, we have really 3 states. The first state for our World Peas app is this product page, where you can see the produce. We have a watermelon, we have pears, and we got some cherries.
Ok.
The second state is a product detail page. If I tap on or click on the watermelon, I should see a watermelon. Pear, pear. Cherry, cherry. The third state is this cart. If the cart has items in it, I should see the cart view that's on the left.
Está haciendo un
with whatever
ejercicio de
items are in my
prototipado y
cart.
nos va a mostrar
And if
las
it
nuevas
has no items in
propiedades.
it, I should see
que
an
trae
empty state on the
prototipado.
right. So
Right.
this should be pretty simple to build, right? Well, today in Figma, it's not. You would have to basically imagine all the different permutations of how you go from adding watermelons and pears and cherries, and each time you wanted to make it so you could add one more, it would expand in a kind of common.
Básicamente para hacer el prototipo que él va a hacer, antes en Figma había que hacer muchas cosas.
In addition,
Ahora vamos a ver algo que es nuevo.
Am I going to see items in the cart or not? Really makes things hard to see, and makes it so that you have even more options at that in that explosion of possibilities. And we actually, just to show you what that does look like, this is an example of what a prototype looks like if you can just add like a few different items, and it doesn't even work if you try to add more items, because I think we're all used to making these happy paths in our prototype, where the user has to do something in a very specific way, and if they don't, the prototype breaks. And this works, but doesn't get the realistic feedback that we all want and need. So let's see how we can do this better with variables. Now, the first thing I want to show you are the variables that I've defined for this prototype. If I go to my general collection, you'll see the sort of global state for this app. We've got 3 items in our cart, which is reflected here. We have a selected product,
Es como un
watermelon,
inspector
reflected there.
de
And we've got our
variables.
total, which is reflected in our cart view here. Now, one thing we
Y
can
está
do
todo
is
tokenizado.
we can use modes to basically create almost like a small database for our products. So each row here are our variables, and each column are our products. And we have a product for watermelon, pears, and cherries. And you can only make these like objects in programming. So they have properties, like a price, in this case $3.99 for the watermelon, a location, and a count for how many are in your cart. Okay, so let's see what it would look like to
Que este nuevo inspector nos va a permitir ver todo lo que está tokenizado dentro de una interfaz, dentro de una pantalla.
And I tap it, I want to add an interaction. So on tap, I'll say I want to set this variable. And I'll set the variable count, which is scoped to the watermelon's object, to count of the watermelon plus 1, because it's incrementing. The second thing we're launching here is that now you can actually add several interactions per trigger. So if I press plus again, it works. I can set another variable, and I can say the total, which is scoped to the global state, is equal to the existing total plus
Listo.
the price of the watermelon. Okay, now let's see if this works.
Aquí,
Usually what I do is I
Está
press
muy
this
bueno.
play button, and I'd have to go back and forth between my
condicionales
prototype
lógicos
and
como
screen.
en Azure
But it's
dice
a
por
little bit
acá.
laborious. It's great when you're presenting
Dice
information, but it's kind of annoying when you're trying to rapidly iterate and develop a prototype.
Pero
So what if instead
listo.
I could do this all in my document? Today we're announcing an inline prototype
qué
viewer.
chévere. Ese está muy bacana. Inline
And you can move
viewer.
this around, you can resize it. It's pretty awesome.
Buenísimo.
And so what
Eso
I'm
está
going
muy
to do
chévere. Eso
is
está
I'm going
muy
to
chévere.
navigate
la verdad.
to
Inline viewer.
my screen that we just made.
¿Listo? Aquí tenemos.
And you can
N5
see
en canasta.
that if I press this 4 button, or this plus button, it'll increment to 4, and also my subtotal will
Y ahí
update.
está sumando. Sí. Porque no le dio la condicional de restar, entonces por eso casi como que ahí no le puedo dar clic, pero si se
Another
dieron cuenta,
usability
ahí la
improvement we've
condicional
made
era
is we're
sumar
announcing now that you
y
can
ahí sumó
actually
el
start to
precio.
see these interactions on the canvas.
Okay.
So if I click here, I can actually
Canvas
see
editor.
right on the canvas what this conditional is. As a reminder, what we're trying to do is make it so that you can go from this cart to either the full cart or the empty state cart. And so I need a conditional to do that. If the quantity in the cart is 0, I should navigate to empty. Otherwise, I should navigate to the basket state.
Conditionals. Ajá.
Okay, so let's see how it all works together now.
A estudiar lógica.
I've got my prototype. I can go to pairs. I can add them to the basket. I can go to my cart. And when I'm in the cart, I can decrease what's in the prototype.
Y
It'll go to the empty state. I can go back home.
okay.
Let's see if the conditional works. If I click here, it'll go to the
Conditional
empty state
works. Okay. Okay.
This is just scratching the surface of what you can do with
Condicionales
prototyping
en
with variables.
prototipos.
Honestly, we could have spent the
Variables
entire keynote
condicionales
just exploring this one
prototipos.
feature, and I am so excited about what you can do here. It's really, really fun to play with, so I can't wait for you to take a look. And all advanced prototyping features will be available on all paid plans. We hope this opens the door to all sorts of more prototyping possibilities. And of course, we didn't cover everything today. If we advance the slide. There we go. To deep dive in these features, if you want to see them tomorrow, you can our in-person workshops. So variables is going to be at 11:30, and we have a deep dive on prototyping at 12:45 tomorrow. So don't miss those. Okay. While this makes it easier to build complex prototypes and model a more realistic user experience, I think you'd all agree that we're not to the finish line until it gets built. So let's go to the next phase, which is development. Now, you can see here that I have my prototype I made as well as the components in this section here. But if I zoom out, I have all these explorations in my file. And that's kind of worrisome because what if my developer builds the wrong thing? Has anyone ever been there before? It happens at Figma too. Today we're announcing
Sí, ya.
small
En la
feature,
próxima config
tiny little feature,
viene el
which is if
framer.
I click my section,
Ok, vamos a
I
ver
now have a little
este
button.
demo.
Everyone see it?
Ok, hay un
It says
nuevo
Mark
botón
is ready
ahí.
for dev.
No sé si se lo habían detallado, pero yo les dije hay cosas nuevas en la interfaz y uno de esos era que hay como un botón en la parte superior derecha
If
que
I
es
click this,
como de código,
And-
code view, algo así.
I get this little status, ready for
Ok,
dev.
status ready
Just a
for
little
dev.
feature.
Ok,
What if I told you that this feature is sort of like a wormhole into a whole new universe of Figma? To explain more, I'm going to welcome Chris Rasmussen, Figma CTO, to the stage. Welcome, Chris.
Chris Rasmussen,
You're going to rock it, man.
Chief Technology Officer. Vamos a ver.
Hey everyone, I am so excited
Creo
to be
que
here today
estamos un
and share
poquito
something new that we.
retrasados. A ver aquí.
So why is it so hard?
Listo, ya, estamos bien.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of different reasons, but at the core of it all is the fact that we're optimizing for very different things when we're developing and when we're designing. When we're
Vamos a ver
designing,
cómo va esa
we're
brecha entre
optimizing for
diseño y
rapid
desarrollo.
iteration and ideation. Anything that interrupts our flow has the potential to limit our creativity. On the other end of the spectrum, when we're getting closer to production, we have to start being explicit about all those details that were previously implied and easily assumed by our team. We need to think not just about how things are going to look and work, but also how they're going to be maintained, reused, and composed. At Figma, we want our tools to be excellent on either end of this spectrum, not just okay somewhere in between. So far, we've built Figma for the design end of the spectrum. But we think it's time to focus on the development end as well. Because 30% of our weekly active users at Figma today are already developers. That's the same percent as designers. And yet we haven't really optimized for their needs. Show of hands. How many of you out here are developers today?
Wow.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely not 30% though. It's okay, we expected that. Because the reality is, developers don't really feel at home in Figma. And it's pretty easy to see why. This is what a typical Figma file looks like, and this is a really pretty version made by our brand design
No,
team.
no.
Screens upon screens, spread across dozens of different pages.
Si hacen
No
lo
clear
que
indication
yo...
of what's new, what's changed, or what's ready to be implemented.
Muchachos,
Way too
yo
many
lo
places
pedí
for
hace 2
basic
años.
actions
Si
like
es
export or
lo
inspect
que
a
va a
color.
pasar.
And those are just the
Y
basics.
tengo la prueba.
On top of all of this, there's often a mismatch between the way designs are structured in Figma and the way they need to be built. As a result, developers rarely get what they need from Figma.
Ajá.
To address these challenges and so many more. I'd like to introduce you to Dev
El
Mode.
Dev Mode. Yo lo pedí hace 2 años. Tengo la
A view
prueba de
into Figma
ello.
files optimized for the needs of development.
Y yo le escribí
Let's go do this
también
live demo.
a uno de los design managers de Figma. Tengo todas las pruebas, tengo todos los tweets, tengo el formulario de change.org
First
donde se
Figma
estaba
demo,
solicitando
live in front of a
el
lot of
Dev
people. Wish me
Mode
luck.
para los desarrolladores. Increíble.
So, here we are in Dev
Increíble
Mode.
esto.
The first thing you'll notice is that it's the exact same file Dylan was working in. We don't have to worry about Dylan needing to export additional revisions. It's got all the same multiplayer goodness as Figma today. It's just a new view optimized for developers. Instead of seeing an overwhelming list of pages with every iteration over the last couple months of work, we only see the pages that have designs that have been marked as ready for development. And of course, we can still get to all those other pages if we need to, but they're collapsed by default. Additionally, we don't think developers need to see an overwhelming list of layers right off the bat. So instead, we show them the sections that have been marked as ready for development and simple thumbnails to help them get a sense of what's going on in this file. Now, many developers struggle to pan and zoom an infinite canvas when they come into Figma for the first time. If you're on a desktop, you don't necessarily know what the keyboard shortcut is. So we've made it really easy to navigate a file simply by clicking around, taking it to the exact part of the canvas with the right zoom level already set up.
Yo debería trabajar
You can
en
also
Figma.
quickly navigate using your arrow keys
Yo debería trabajar
and
en
get a
Figma.
lay of the land. And if I know how to use this zoom feature here, you can see exactly when every screen was last edited.
No, es increíble. Es
If a screen
increíble.
actually
A
changed
ver,
since the last time I was in this
yo no
file,
les
you would
miento.
also see a little yellow badge to help direct your attention to what's new. Now, this screen says it was edited an hour ago, so Dylan must have changed something, but I don't really know what he changed. I'm sure many of you have been here before, regardless of whether or not you're a designer
A
or a
ver,
developer.
interrumpo
It's just
la
not always obvious.
transmisión
And I could go ask
para
Dylan to come back
traer
out here and show me
algunos
exactly
facts
what he wanted me
a
to
la
do,
mesa.
or I can use a new feature called
A ver.
Compare Changes. Here it is. Compare changes
Bueno, ahorita se acabé, pero...
of a design in the current version and any previous version you might have seen.
Okay,
You can
pongámosle
switch
cuidado.
between a side-by-side view or an overlay mode to quickly get a sense for what's changed.
Ok. Listo. Muy bien. Van a poder ver mejor los cambios. Van a tener una vista mucho más enfocada en
So in this
cuanto a
particular case, a
qué ha
lot
pasado,
changed.
si
So we also give
editaron
you
o no
a list
editaron
of
la
the layers
pantalla
that have
mientras que
been edited,
pronto
added, and
no la está
removed.
viendo el
As a developer,
desarrollador.
this is incredibly helpful for me,
Mayor
because
control
sometimes
sobre
the changes
ello.
aren't even easy to spot visually. For example, here, this world peace text changed, which is obvious. It looks like it was moved around and resized.
A ver.
But what wasn't obvious is that all these other
voy a
properties
mostrar
changed that I
esto.
might need to go update the code with. So this really accelerates the design to development process and
Miren,
eliminates a lot of
we need
tedious
a
back and
developer
forth.
profile for
And any
Figma.
change
Lo
that happens
pedí
here is easily
el 20 de
inspectable, so you
mayo
can see that
de
this
2021,
button was replaced with a
petición
new button
para
that was added
Figma,
here. And if there were any layers that were removed, like this
para
one, you can see
Figma
that as well.
Incorporate. Y aquí
So
está
that's
la
compare
petición.
changes.
Necesitamos un perfil para desarrollador en Figma. Y 2 años después, aquí está el perfil
Now
para
these are just the
desarrolladores
basics,
en
and
Figma.
there's so much more we can do to bridge the
Gracias.
gap between design and
Gracias,
development.
Figma.
So let's keep going. The
Me
next thing
deberían
I'd like to
contratar,
show
¿no?
you
En Figma.
is
Voy a
that
pasar
it
eso
changed the default
cuando
selection
envíe mi
heuristics in
postulación a
dev mode,
Figma, les
so you
envío
can
eso.
easily inspect individual layers without having to double-click through deeply nested groups. For example, if I want to view this icon right here, all I have to do is click it, and I've got it selected. In addition to that, we also know that oftentimes icons, if I go back to design mode real quick, consist of many different layers and paths. And time again, developers tell us that they ended up selecting an individual path and exporting that rather than the entire icon. So you'll see that in dev mode, we now have heuristics to detect this and collapse that into a single simplified layer, so you always select exactly what you need. The other thing we hear very often from developers is that the default values that design tools like Figma surface aren't really that helpful when you're writing code. For example, we all know that developers don't really use absolute positions in the top left coordinate of every single item in order to translate it to code. We need to think about responsive layouts and how things resize and reflow across different form factors and content types. So Figma now surfaces these implicit properties as well. For example, as I hover over this design, you'll see that red lines have been greatly improved to also show the padding between elements, the margin, and more. We've also introduced a new familiar diagram for anyone who's used a browser development tool before, with the box diagram over here on the right. This will show me not only the padding, spacing, and margin, but also the border radiuses, the border weights, and more. Now, many of you are working in units other than pixels. So in dev mode, you can now go over to this little setting icon here and customize the units from pixels to rems, and even set the unit scale if you're using a relative unit measurement like rems. And of course, this works for other platforms as well. We've introduced new Swift UI for iOS, and we've introduced a Jetpack Compose module too.
Yo creo que todos los diseñadores están como, ok, sí, muy lindo todo esto, no entiendo mucho.
Now, many of you are already working hard to bring
Pero bueno,
your designs
son
closer
cosas
to production by investing in
interesantísimas.
design systems.
Eh,
Design systems are often built by hybrid teams that are both building design systems in Figma and also building design systems in code to up-level the vocabulary of what we're communicating with together. And dev mode works with design systems too. So here,
¿Sí o no?
you'll
Los
see that
diseñadores
with our
estamos
new
como,
variables feature,
ok.
if I'm using variables in my design, I can now see
Alguien
that
que me
in
explique
dev
todo lo
mode,
que está pasando. Pero bueno, la verdad,
not just
lo
in
entiendo todo a
the red
perfección.
lines, but
Tiene
also
todo el
in the code
sentido
that's generated
porque
as
se
well. So
traen
here
los
you can see
tokens, porque tenemos las
that it's
variables,
using the color surface
tenemos
subtle variable,
eh,
which may or may not exist
como
in
una
my
vista
code, and if it
mucho
doesn't,
más
it'll fall back to the
mejorada.
default value, and I can go create
Esto
it
me
when I port it
parece
over.
increíble, la verdad. O sea, me parece muy bueno.
Surface components and make them really easy to
Y es que eso era lo que realmente un desarrollador necesitaba. Cuando un desarrollador entraba a Figma, se perdía en capas. No sé si a ustedes les pasaba, les borraban capas o hacían comentarios, etcétera. Pero bueno, ya con esta nueva vista mejorada, se pone muy, muy interesante todo.
build a design that already has components. But if you're trying to build a component for the first time, we're also introducing a new component playground. The component playground allows you to manipulate a component well in dev mode without having to worry about editing the underlying file.
Buenísimo,
So you can do this
buenísimo el
as a viewer
playground.
as well.
Buenísimo. Una previsualización del componente para desarrollo, incluso para los
And
diseñadores
because
sería
there's
muy
often a
bueno.
relationship between our design systems components and our code components, we've also made it possible for developers to associate links with
Estoy
any
súper
layer in
bueno.
a design like a component. So you can link to things like GitHub or other development tools. And if these links get added to a component,
Buenísimo.
they immediately propagate to all of the instances, not just within that file, but across all the files that your company uses, so that other developers benefit from it as well. So we've talked to many of you about where you stand on the side of, I need the design tool to generate code for me, or I just want it to help me to understand the composition of a design. And many of you are in different places on that spectrum. We want to make sure that Figma works for you regardless of where you are. So, for example, if you're implementing a component for the first time, we provide you with these simple code snippets. They've been revamped to be a lot better, so they generate better code.
Bueno, creo
that's
que
more
con
likely
esto
to be useful
se
in
está
production
mejorando
using modern
muchísimo la
systems like
experiencia de los
Flexbox, reflect autolayout,
desarrolladores
even detect autolayout in places where you might
Figma.
not have used it.
Mucha más
And then, of course, they
integración
also use
con
variables.
repositorios como GitHub, código un poco más limpio para usar, la misma visualización, algunos features interesantes. Buenísimo, buenísimo. Habrá que ver porque por ahí leí que sí lo van a cobrar. Habrá que ver si lo van a cobrar. Vamos a ver si van a cobrar esto. Plugins for that mode.
Plugins we've created and open sourced to help you figure out how you can customize Figma to your needs. And this is the component inspector plugin. So I'll switch over to the React code gen mode.
Ok, van a poder usar plugins dentro de la vista de desarrollador.
And you can see I have it selected here. And now you'll see, instead of just showing me some CSS or iOS styling,
Todo esto por solo $45 por desarrollador total.
parameters in the Figma code base today.
Sí, porque por editor cobran eso. Ahora pensemos en cuanto a,
In addition to that, we've also
en cuanto a
generated
qué
beautiful typescript
a
definitions.
desarrollador.
We're gonna implement this
¿Has
code
visto
in
desarrollador
InDesign,
cómo va a
so you
ser?
have a sense for all the different properties and parameters you need to get started. But what if you want to go even further? Well, we have some incredible partners in our community that have been working with us throughout the beta to help do just that, like Anima and AWS Amplify Studio. So I'm going to go over here, and now I'm going to switch to Anima, and I'm personally a type fan, so I'm going to use
Bueno, chévere esto que se pueda también usar plugins dentro de la vista de programador. Creo que hayan algunos plugins muy buenos que añadían ahí eficiencia al desarrollo y ya se puede usar directamente aquí. El anuncio fuerte del dinero va a ir después, así que esperemos. Ese anuncio va a ir después.
It's also possible to take over the entire properties panel and bring in other developer tools inside of Figma. For example, we've been working with Atlassian to build a Jira integration for Figma so that you can start to record tasks while you're still in the design file and associate them with the individual layers in the file. So I'm going to go ahead and show how that works now. So we'll go ahead and run the Jira plugin. And you'll see that right here, I now have all of the tasks that are related to the particular page in my design file. And because they're associated with individual layers where I actually need to do the work, they'll take me to the exact portion of the canvas where the task was originally created. I can also create new tasks from here, add comments, and it will sync bidirectionally between the two tools.
Vamos.
So I just showed you how it's possible to integrate Figma with other applications by bringing those applications into Figma. We thought it would be really cool if we could bring Figma to the applications where developers live too. So we've built a plugin for VS Code called Figma for VS Code. So with Figma for VS Code, you get this new icon here in your left panel. And when you switch over to it, you're going to have access to your recents, your shared files, your starred files. You're going to see all of the notifications related to things that are ready for development. And you're going to see a familiar canvas bringing Figma right inside of your code editor. You also have access to all of the great inspection features that I just showed you. So you can see here I can expand this properties panel, view the CSS code snippets, and the CSS box model. But we've also made it possible to do a little bit more.
No, yo creo que sí se va a seguir usando, pero tal vez Figma esté metiéndose también en ese terreno.
For example, we'll go back to this familiar product card example. I can start writing code, and Figma is going to automatically detect that I'm typing a layer name. It'll select that layer, autocomplete, and fill in the code for me. It's really awesome. Can we go back a slide? So in the Figma community today, you're going to find inspect panel plugins from our partners like GitHub, Atlassian, Storybook, Microsoft, Anima, Linear, and Google. I want to give a big shout out to all of our partners for working with us throughout the Dev Mode private beta and building a better developer experience together. Now, just to recap real quick, we're launching a new space purpose-built for developers, Dev Mode. From section status, wayfinding, compare versions, inspect panel plugins, to a brand new integration with VS Code, we hope Dev Mode is just the first step towards developers finally feeling like Figma is for them. And just to be clear, you're still going to be able to do everything you can today as a previewer, like comment on designs, generate code, copy values, and export assets. Dev Mode builds on top of all of that and will be available to all users for the rest of 2023. Starting in 2024, Dev Mode will be available to all editors on paid plans. Additionally, for customers on our organization and enterprise plans, you'll be
Ahí
able
está
to
el-
purchase
ahí
a
está el
separate
sablazo.
license of dev mode at a lower price. To dive deeper into dev mode, check out the in-person workshop tomorrow at 2
Organización,
p.m.
$25
Now, to close
por
this keynote
licencia
out,
de
I'm gonna
Dev
welcome
Mode
Dylan back
y
onto the stage.
Enterprise, $35 por,
Killed it. Good
por
job.
licencia. ¿Qué piensan? ¿Qué piensan?
I
¿Qué
am
piensan?
so
Cuéntame.
excited for dev mode and for everything else we talked about today. So, just to let you know, because I know you're wondering, you'll get access to all these features as we roll them out across today. And they'll all be enabled right after the keynote. So check them out and give us your feedback, as always. Okay, 2 more things. First, when you log into Figma next, you might notice a refreshed file browser. We've unified the experience so you can search, get notifications,
Okay, file
and view recents
browser.
across your entire account. And with new shared projects and shared files tabs, you'll be able to easily access files shared with you. Lastly, perhaps
Okay, phone
our
picker.
most longest
Phone
awaited feature.
picker. Por fin.
If you were at Config 2020, you may have remembered that we announced an updated font picker there. And today, a little over 3 years later, we're announcing it's going live,
¿Qué tal?
complete with font preview. Sometimes these things just take longer than expected, you know? Before we wrap up, I want to give a special thank you to all of the beta customers who partnered with us, given us feedback, and supported our launch today. So I want to quickly see what they think of these new features.
This Figma variables feature was so highly anticipated, I actually took a break from my honeymoon to test it out.
It was like witnessing pure magic. I cannot believe I spent all these hours converting everything to dark theme manually. There may have been some times where
Claro,
we handed
Atlassian,
off prototypes and they'd be
Netflix.
like, wow, it's already built?
I used to take pride in my ability
Ya lo
to
tenían,
make
ya lo
a
estaban
good
probando.
spec. I don't miss that at all because it was super annoying.
It
¿Y
brings
la TAM?
our workload down. One of our engineers said,
cuándo?
now I can finally sleep at night.
Vamos, que vamos a hacer una clase
again to
de
everyone who
Figma con todas estas
participated in the
nuevas
beta.
actualizaciones. Claro que sí.
And this is just the
Vamos a
beginning of where we're
hacer
going to
un
go
review
and where we're going to
y
take our
recuerden que
platform.
viene también el
And of
curso
course, we
de
see AI
Design System.
enabling
Así
that
que
as well.
me acaban de cambiar todo el temario,
We've been
señoras y
building our
señores.
ML
Me
team for a
acaban
bit
de
now,
cambiar todo
and
el
we're
temario.
exploring how AI will power our entire platform at Figma.
Ya no voy a poder enseñar lo que pensaba
Here are some
enseñar.
early
Ahora con
explorations and
variables
ideas
y
of
todo
what might
esto.
be
Wow.
possible.
A ver.
Oh,
Eh.
can we go back? Sorry.
Ah, ok. Ok. Inteligencia artificial.
From
Oh, se pifió, se pifió.
variants and recommendations from your design systems, to chaining together different plugin actions, to automating variation or resizing across
Okay.
devices. We see AI playing a
Les
central
dije,
role
viene
across
algo
the
de
Figma
inteligencia
platform.
artificial. Ahí está.
So, we're also excited to share the news that to accelerate our AI and ML work, we've acquired a company called Diagram.
Diagram. El asistente de
As
inteligencia
many of you know,
artificial.
Diagram was founded by Jordan Singer, a longtime Figma community member. And honestly, Diagram's tools
Bueno,
make
le
design feel
honraron
even
ahí
more
un
magical. So we're
plugin
excited to
hecho por la
deliver AI
comunidad.
capabilities across Figma in partnership now with the Diagram team.
Ah, tengo.
And if this topic interests you, and it should, you have to tune in tomorrow. We have some amazing talks lined up, including Noah Levin, our VP of Design at Figma. He's going to be talking with the Diagram team as well. And all these other incredible, amazing speakers are going to talk about AI in our keynotes tomorrow. So please join us. Don't miss it. Now to close, every all hands at Figma, I typically share some parting thoughts, and I thought I'd bring that tradition to Config today. The future of design needs all of you. It needs more thinkers and builders to come together. The future needs you to
En un
spark
momentico
imagination
mostró algo
into action.
de eso.
So,
En un momentico lo mostró.
let's go build that future together.
¿Sí o no? ¿O
Thank
estoy
you for
mal?
joining us this
Sí,
morning.
Diagram.
And
Sí,
please
sí, no es.
enjoy Config. Thank you
Ok,
all.
ok. Bueno, menos mal estamos aquí en YouTube. Voy a ir un poquito atrás. Porque él se pifió en un momentico de la presentación y mostró algo. Como que... por acá. Bueno, ¿cómo les pareció? Ya acaba de terminar las Keynote acá. Bueno. Like in
From
Figma.
suggesting
Era esto. Add hover, preset and focus. Ok. Ok, ahí está lo que... Voy a ponerle más calidad. Ahí está. Voy a tomar un screenshot a esto. Vamos a live.
Working really hard on these launches, so we can't wait to have you all try these new features and tell us what you think.
A ver, tenemos el mismo pin.
The biggest change. Can we go back one, please? I know many of you, personally, I'm excited to see what you all build with variables. Your design systems are going to be so powerful and so flexible and so next level. And I know many of you are going to make some absolutely stunning prototypes with these new features. And I'm hoping you'll share them with the rest of the community to inspire us all.
Estamos con todos los poderes aquí desde mi canal en Bogotá.
This investment reflects our core aspiration that Chris and
¿Cómo
Dylan
les
talked
pareció?
about, which is that if you can think it,
Cuéntenme.
Figma will help you build it. And we think dev mode, along
ahorita
with all
estamos
these updates
entrando
that you
en
saw
la
today, is going to
segunda-
fundamentally change the way that you
segunda
build
keynote.
products and really bring the entire product team closer together. Now,
Y esta ya es un poco más acerca de productos, una charla un poco más
great team approaches it. To do that, next up,
menos novedades de Figma.
share their unique take on building products. They are Katie Dill.
Ok, bueno. Primeras impresiones de todo esto. Creo que era súper acertado, súper necesario lo que trajo el equipo de Figma. Recapitulando un poco, lo primero que nos dieron fue tokens, que ellos lo van a estar llamando variables, no lo van a llamar como tokens. Dylan lo dejó como muy claro ahí desde el principio. Va a ser variables y vamos a tener variables en diferentes niveles. Variables de color, variables de espaciado, variables en bordes redondeados, variables en texto. Así que bueno, se sigue cerrando el espectro a nivel de tokenización en Figma. Tenemos un inspector de tokens, tenemos también ese inspector a nivel de prototipo, vamos a estar hablando de ello también. Entonces, variables, lo primero. Lo segundo fue el multibrand a través de las variables. Vamos a tener multibrand, así que creo que va a ser increíble. Vimos así como ese ejemplo en que Dylan pasaba de un lado a otro. Voy a ir, acá lo podemos ir viendo aquí en el... Lo bueno es que está aquí en YouTube por ahora, así que podemos ir recorriendo esas diferentes anuncios. A ver, entonces aquí tenemos lo que al principio explicaba. Tenemos entonces este inspector de variables. Tenemos allí todas las variables. Dark Mode, Light Mode y Multibrand. También lo vamos a tener. Multi-lenguaje también. Para aquellos productos que también son multilenguaje. Vimos aquí el énfasis que le dieron a Japón. Japón es uno de los mercados también más fuertes de Figma. Los japoneses vienen usando Figma increíblemente. También África. Así que ya saben que Figma también ha abierto muchas posibilidades. Me hace falta también ver algo de ese estilo por los lados de África, porque también hay una comunidad y una gran cantidad de personas allí usando Figma. Así que repaso entonces: variables de color, espaciados, booleanos. Vamos a tener espaciados en cada uno de ellos. Mejoras en el Autolayout. Aquí este fue el espacio de mejoras. Vamos a tener wrap, min white, min white y height, max white y height, y vamos a poder tener también esa posibilidad de redimensionar el canvas y que todo se reacomode. ¿Qué más? Díganme ustedes qué fue lo que más les gustó de esta primera keynote, de las novedades más grandes de Figma. Escríbanme ahí por el chat si pueden, cuéntenme ahí qué impresiones les deja esto, qué más. Dice Noeli, siente que necesita tomar un curso para aprender todo lo nuevo. Bueno, eso se va a ir viendo pues en el día a día, la verdad. Va a ser muy bueno. La verdad creo que muchas de estas mejoras, si las vemos de las primeras, de variables, que son tokens, eso está muy hecho para todos los equipos que hacemos Design System. Realmente es algo que yo siento que en mi día a día sí va a mejorar, por lo menos en el producto Mercado Libre, Mercado Pago. Creo que nos va a dar muchísima organización a nivel de tokens. Va a ser un trabajo increíble. Le mando un saludo y un shout out para mi equipo de Andes, porque la estamos rompiendo. Pero va a ir mucho trabajo a nivel de tokens, y más si ahora lo vamos a poder también tener desde Figma. Entonces esto de tener una pantalla, esto pasa mucho en Mercado Libre, y es que tenemos una pantalla de Mercado Libre a un lado y una de Mercado Pago, y puede que sea en la misma pantalla, pero necesitan sí o sí tener el brand de cada unidad de negocio. Así que, como lo vemos acá, esto en esta demo, sería tan fácil como trasladar una pantalla de un lado a otro y tener esa tokenización directa, ese cambio de estilos y de brand. Así que bueno, bien ahí Figma, primeras impresiones, lo veo muy bien. Luego pasamos al área del Autolayout. No hay mucho que decir, creo que era algo que necesitábamos, era algo que era algo que sí o sí necesitábamos tener en Autolayout, y herramientas que llevan menos tiempo en el mercado ya lo venían haciendo, así que muy bien por ahí Figma, me gusta, y va a servir un montón. Bueno, aquí tenemos el meme de el Figmaverse, con todas sus conexiones y con todos sus eventos canónicos, que si recordemos, un evento canónico es que siempre se te borre alguno de los prototipos, o que cuando estés en el prototipo alguna interacción no te haya quedado bien y que es en vergüenza, en ridículo, ya sea con tu cliente, con tu usuario o con algún stakeholder. Ese es un evento canónico que todos hemos tenido que recorrer prototipando en Figma. Si no se han visto Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, los invito, muy buena película, todavía está en cartelera. Ahí, así que hay un chiste muy fino. Listo, siguiente, tenemos entonces ahora nuevas opciones con condicionales para crear prototipos. Va a ser mucho más real a la hora en que estamos haciendo un prototipo. Vamos a tener interfaces mucho más cercanas al producto final. En este caso vimos el ejemplo de cuando se suma a la canasta un producto. Vemos que la suma se realizaba. La opción de agregar y borrar productos en el carrito, perdón, el carrito no, sino, sí, bueno, acá es carrito, acá tenemos una canastita, y cómo nos llevaba a la página sin ítems, de una manera muy sencilla, sin conexiones. Todo era a través de las variables, que ahora las vamos a poder trabajar desde el área de prototipado. Acá vemos todas las variables, y tenemos pues cómo podemos hacerlo. Aquí ya se ve, ya tenemos más opciones a la hora de generar interacciones. Aquí lo que vamos a hacer es una variable. Tenemos diferentes opciones. Vamos a poder, a través de los tokens, indicarle al prototipo qué debería suceder en este caso. Hay que aprender un poquito más, hay que acercarnos más a nuestros desarrolladores, tomar algún curso de desarrollo básico o de variables, para poder entender también, porque esto va un poquito más allá de la sola herramienta de diseño como tal. Ahí sí creo que vamos a tener que vernos algún cursito de ello. Luego vimos el ejemplo. Bueno, vimos aquí el preview inline, si no estoy mal, que era así que se llamaba. Sí, ahí lo tenemos, el inline viewer, perfecto, una ventana sobre otra ventana para poder ver el prototipo sin tener que irnos a otra pestaña. Buenísimo, un golazo desde allí. Luego vimos esto, pasamos aquí a la partecita de ¿esto qué era? Ya se me olvidó. Bueno, la parte de Developer View. Y aquí un pequeño como guiño a la comunidad. Y es que mucha gente desarrolló plugins y algunos tipos de files que te permitían ir documentando que ya estaba listo para desarrollo, que necesitaba ajustes y demás. Eso, pues como lo vemos aquí, ya podría estar nativo, ready for dev, nativo desde Figma. Así que un pequeño guiño ahí a la comunidad que siempre ha estado pendiente a desarrollar herramientas y recursos para el día a día. Aquí un paréntesis, creo que todo esto parte de una comunidad muy activa que todo el tiempo está viendo mejoras que Figma no ve. Estoy seguro de eso. Y créanme que si muchas de las empresas y productos que existen hoy día tuvieran comunidades como estas, tendríamos mejores productos. Porque la comunidad aporta un montón. Y más acá. Que somos una comunidad de diseñadores y vemos muchísimas cosas que Figma no ve. Aquí tenemos una prueba de ello. Luego viene el CTO y anuncia el Dead Mode en Figma. Él comienza contando que bueno, que normalmente los diseñadores vemos el documento de una manera, pero el desarrollador lo ve de otra manera, no le es claro la navegación, no le es claro los elementos. Y ahí viene entonces lo que es este Developer Mode. ¿Por qué les digo que hay un pequeño paréntesis para hablar de la comunidad? Porque yo hice una charla hace 2 años que se llamaba Figma para desarrolladores. No sé si ustedes lo recuerdan, pero cuando yo hice esta charla, muchos desarrolladores me decían, Johan, pero es que yo veo que hay muchas capas, que esto no me sirve, que los componentes, que una cosa, que la otra, el preview mode no me convence tanto. Y de esta charla, que fue con más de 500 desarrolladores el día de Zoom, yo saqué una petición en change.org, que aquí está, si la quieren ver, acá se las dejo en el enlace, y decía muy claramente, we need a developer profile for Figma. Y aquí teníamos una portada que yo había hecho para la charla, Figma for Devs, y decía, developers need a customized profile with tools intended for their daily work with Figma. This request stems from this talk. Y aquí colocó la charla. La firmaron 115 desarrolladores. Y bueno, obviamente no me estoy atribuyendo nada de esto. Después de varios años, vemos el resultado de algo que pudo haber nacido también dentro de los equipos. No estoy diciendo que yo haya generado esto ni nada de eso, pero creo que muy en línea de lo que yo en ese momento vi con los desarrolladores, y era la necesidad de tener una vista para ellos, un developer mode dentro de Figma. Obviamente Figma va a cobrar esto, como lo estuvimos viendo, $25 en el plan de organización y $35 en el plan de Enterprise. Así que tampoco va a estar barato, pero digamos que ya Figma coloca un poco más de foco en las necesidades de esos usuarios que son tan recurrentes y que de alguna manera están metidos en Figma por inercia. Realmente ya todo está surgiendo desde Figma, todo se gesta desde allí, y bueno, pues ya era necesario tener eso. Así que, ¿cómo lo ven? Esas son pues los highlights de esta primera keynote de Product En este momento está avanzando la segunda Keynote, más es un conversatorio. Pero bueno, yo quería acompañarlos en esta primera fase de la config y pues nada, conocer sus opiniones, compartir con ustedes. Ya son las 12 del mediodía aquí en Colombia y en otros países 2 de la tarde. Por aquí represent con el pin de Figma. Tengo por acá el otro pin de la config. Y la verdad, mis últimas impresiones, muy contento por el resultado de esta config. Veo los cambios y veo las nuevos features muy de la mano con las necesidades de la comunidad, con las necesidades de los usuarios. Yo creo que se vienen más cosas y más trabajo. Sí me hace falta, cerrando este espacio, sí me hace falta mucha más representación latina, empresas latinas allí, pero como lo conversábamos, tal vez para Figma no es tan atractivo nuestras historias desde Latinoamérica, porque no están, digamos, al nivel de lo que se espera o al nivel de lo que ya se ha visto en otras config. Recordemos que en config pasadas sí hubo representación latina, equipos de producto desde Latinoamérica. Si no estoy mal, el año pasado estuvo pues el equipo de Andes de Mercado Libre en una de las charlas principales. Fue en español la charla. Años anteriores estuvo Santiago Camargo de parte de Huge. No me acuerdo ahorita el nombre de la persona que estuvo con él, sorry. Pero hubo representación latina, hubo más representación cercana a nuestros países. Este año desafortunadamente no la hay como la hubiéramos querido, pero sabemos que en Latinoamérica seguimos haciendo cosas increíbles y que próximamente podremos estar allá. Así que muchas gracias hoy por acompañarme en este espacio. Muy agradecido con ustedes también. Y pues nada, voy a tratar de recoger todos esos highlights en LinkedIn también para compartirlos. Gracias a ustedes por seguirme. Recuerden darle aquí abajito en la cajita, darle seguir al canal. Y bueno, se vienen más cositas, recuerden que estoy haciendo algunas clases gratuitas. Con todo esto de Figma hoy, yo creo que sí o sí va a tener que ir un curso de actualización. Ahí como lo comenta Kaiser, que en el software industrial cada año toman cursos de actualización. Así yo creo que ya cada año con Figma nos va a tocar tomar cursos, nos va a tocar reaprender lo que estamos haciendo porque viene cambiando un montón. Yo de hecho le dije eso a mis estudiantes que estoy viendo en el curso de Digital Product Design de Colectivo 23 junto con IDEO. Les dije, así se hace hoy el prototipado en Figma. Les dije, así se hace hoy. Esperemos a ver a esta semana que viene la config cómo vamos a resultar haciendo prototipos. Y bueno, dicho y hecho, estamos acostumbrados. Figma todo el tiempo viene cambiando cosas año tras año. Si conociste Figma en el 2017, probablemente no lo sepas usar a día de hoy. Lo mismo si lo hayas comenzado a usar en el 2018, 2020. Será muy complicado que a día de hoy estés actualizado. Así que, bueno, no me queda nada más por decirles sino gracias. Recuerden seguirme en Instagram también, que tengo Instagram. Twitter, que tengo Twitter. YouTube, que tengo YouTube. Y aquí en la plataforma morada para seguirnos viendo con más recurrencia. Un abrazo, que tengan muy buen día y felices diseños en Figma. Un abrazo. Chao, chao. Este video quedará en YouTube.